All right, so again, download the document. It's the first time we're downloading it. So when you drag and drop it up into Cami, it should not ask you to select anything or make a new copy.
Dr. Brown, mine's not, she keeps saying failed and there's no file.
Okay, let me refresh it and try again. If it is giving you some kind of an error message, refresh that page and download it again. The other thing you need to do is click the Pear Deck link. Okay, is it working this time, Memphis? No? Let's see what's going on. Okay. Let's make sure it's getting play nice from this point. Well, you should be able to just drag and drop it up from the download bar. Well, okay. Good deal. All right, there is your code to join. After we get through this, yes. If you still need to get in, that code is going to remain up there. All right, guys, let's be on task so we can get that daily expectation points.
Yeah, the weekly grade, do you just base it off our added?
It's whatever the total grade is in Canvas at that point in time.
Stuff we did for the week?
Nope. It is a snapshot of your grade in Canvas at that moment. So it's your overall grade in Canvas. That's it. And that's why every week all of the other grades drop out of the calculations except that one. So your overall grade in Power School and your weekly grade for 7 to 11 February is the same thing. In this module, we're going to be looking at globalization from the past to the present. Images like this are going to make more sense, right? Rather than just being a generic wooden sailing ship, design is going to mean something to you. You're going to learn some about the tools of globalization then and how they compare to globalization now. Right? This is what globalization by sea looked like then. It's what it looks like now. Container ships that brought over your laptops, brought your sneakers, right? Probably most of the things with you or on you today came by container ship. And those container ships, the sailors might still have to learn how to use one of these, but they navigate with much more sophisticated technology. This is an important unit, and it's got a lot of objectives. By the end of this unit, you should be able to explain what globalization means and what are its different components. We're going to look at different stages of globalization, and when we have completed this unit, you should be able to describe the key characteristics of each of those different stages of globalization. You should also be able to explain the factors that have enabled the globalization at those different stages. So obviously, just from what that first cover slide shows you, the technology has changed. Our old friends' motivations will be with us now and again here. We want to know what has led people to support and promote globalization on the one hand, and on the other, what has motivated some people to oppose globalization, sometimes very fiercely and violently. Should be able to describe various consequences that have resulted from globalization. And there's lots and lots of different consequences over what we're going to find out are the centuries of globalization. As usual, is the higher order end of our objectives. Should be able to make arguments, take positions, make evaluations and judgments. I want you to be able to argue for globalization or in opposition to globalization. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? All right. And when I first started teaching about globalization, this would have been where we stopped. Globalization was seen as essentially an inevitable force. And so you could like it or you could dislike it, but that was the end of the conversation. It's different now. And it's been different for a while. It's not just different since the pandemic started. Now another task for you to do is to make predictions about what the future is going to mean for globalization. Will it continue to build, or is it going to weaken? Is it going to fall apart? The pandemic disrupted a lot of globalization. Conflict between the United States and China has thrown up a lot of barriers to the globalization that existed 15 years ago. What Russia is doing is making a mess of our understanding of what a globalized world was going to look like. And so part of your task is going to be able to make predictions about the future for globalization. All right. Well, first thing, we need to know what we're talking about when we use the term globalization. There are tons of different definitions. The one we're going to use is similar to the one that I've been using for quite some time now, and that's this. The development of closer economic, cultural, and political relations among all the countries of the world. as a result of travel and communication becoming easy. And this came from a Cambridge dictionary that had lots of different definitions of globalization, and tried to explain the different reasons you might want to use one definition over another. This is the best for us. And we can see it in these images. We can start with this one. What movie is that a poster for? Encanto. Right, Encanto. What does it say Encanto on there, Jazz?
It says Megan.
What's that?
It says her name.
Well, yes, but, right, does it say it in English? All right. No, so Jazz, I picked the wrong person to ask that. But, all right. For anybody who's not Jazz, do those letters say anything? Do they say Encanto? Zach, does that say to you Encanto? No. Sure, no. Right. But we know it's Encanto, right? Okay, so Jazz, what language is that written in? Japanese, right? So it's written in Japanese. What is Encanto about?
Mexican.
Close, so Colombian, but close. I only know that because for a couple of reasons. I happened to see an article about how they got Colombian culture and folklore right, so don't beat yourself up. Yeah, so Latin America, right? What else?
Magical powers.
Magical powers, a family in Latin America, right? And they're singing in Spanish, right? And yet this poster is from a Japanese showing of this film. What else is on there? Zach, what is a word that without fibbing a bit, you know you can read on that poster? Disney, right? What's Disney got to do with any of this? Yeah, they're the company that made it. Okay. Is Disney Latin American?
Yes.
No.
No. Kind of.
What country does Disney call home? America. Right? Matter of fact, the founder of Disney was born and grew up just a few miles down the road in Kansas City. Right? So we've got an American company making a film about a Latin American family with magical gifts. And it has been distributed at least as far as Japan. Right? That's cultural and economic relations getting closer. Right? We can all experience, right, that story. I say economic. Why is it also economic? Why did Disney make this movie?
To make money.
To make money. Right? No, is it also because the people involved like to tell stories and be creative? Sure. That Lin-Manuel Miranda that has made this, that guy's a genius. And he makes really good movies, right? And plays and all of that other stuff, right? But Dakota is right. Disney also made it in order to earn a profit, right? So closer economic and cultural ties. Some of what makes it possible is satellite technology that can beam communications around the world. It's how right now, right, if one of you wants to, you can probably get on your phone and live stream the Olympics at lunch. Right? And a lot of that is because of that type of communications technology. Also matched up to fiber optics and cellular transmissions. Other thing, right? Example, UPS. Right? Around the world, even places like Japan where they don't use letters like UPS for most of their stuff. Right? What do you think? Jaderic, if a UPS plane flies in and lands in a Japanese airport, are the people going to know what it does? Will they know what UPS stands for? Actually, they will. Right? I mean, UPS is a global company. Right? If you buy something in Japan, right? If Jazz wants to buy a copy of that Disney poster, right, from Japan, right, probably going to ship it UPS, right? And it'll be here in a shockingly short period of time. UPS can take that package from one side of the world to the other in 24 hours, and they can do so because of things like modern air travel. Okay. And then finally, political relations. There are lots of different versions of this, right? Lots of different forms of closer political relations, but the biggest is the United Nations. Every country in the world is a member. It's not saying everybody always gets along, but everybody's a member. Right? They all meet in New York City, no matter where they're from, and they can do that again because of modern technology that lets people travel around the world quickly. One of the other things we also need to deal with is the fact that globalization, right, and a lot of the elements we consider to be part of globalization are not new, not even close to new. Right. Now, some of what we're going to be talking about, right, is not exactly globalization. These are going to be our ancestors or forerunners of globalization, but we're going to start with our good friends, the Phoenicians. And for reference here, they were doing this from the 6th to the 1st century BC, or 2nd century BC. Now, take a look at this map. I'll help you with some of it because I know this is going to be hard for a lot of you to see, especially at the back. These darkest blue areas, those are areas of Greek civilization, right? Which is not surprising. This peninsula here is modern-day Greece. Right? Areas that we see with these vertical lines, they're a little harder to see here, a little easier to see there. They are what are called intensively Hellenized. That's just another way of saying that the Greeks, right, have been very influential there. The lighter blue areas are areas that have adopted some elements of Greek culture. Right, our other areas, these arrows here show Phoenician trade routes. Shaded in areas are settlements founded by the Phoenicians. Notice that there's some overlap here with kind of where they are and where Greek influence is spread. Right, and all these other little symbols show different things that are being traded. Whether it is grains, right, ivory from Africa, right, and even as far north as what today is southern England and Cornwall, where gold, or not gold, but lead and tin were traded. And of course, this area here, though not labeled, is the Mediterranean Sea. So what I want you guys to tell me in the paradigm, you don't have to provide one of each of these things, but how do we see these different types of relations, economic, cultural, or political? And you don't have to give me all three, but you do have to give me at least one. Traven, and as interesting as whatever that is, let's get rid of it and be on task.
I'll call it none.
We're going to lock screens in 30 seconds. I don't know why it took me so long to discover that trick in Paradag. Okay. Some of you pointed out Greek, right? Economic relations, right? Trade routes go everywhere, right? Getting resources. Okay. And that's right. So what we need to put in, because you guys have got different things for each of these categories. Economically, We've got trade in resources. Let's do it this way. And it goes across Southern Europe. It would help if I could type. So we already have trade that's happening over long distances and including different continents. Matter of fact, we can also include Asia in that because it includes modern-day Turkey, right? And of course what today is Lebanon, sorry. It's talking about it like it's Lebanon, Missouri, the aluminum boat capital of the world. Okay. And cultural, right? Some of you picked up that right, Greek culture spread. I mean, if we look at all the different places it is, it's over here where we later get the Byzantine Empire. So it is spreads to Asia, Egypt in Africa. That's what this is right here. And it's why if you, well, there's lots of reasons for this, but if you visit Egypt today, one of the tourist hotspots is a city called Alexandria. There was a famous library there. It's not surprising that it's named after a Hellenized Greek ruler, Alexander the Great. Okay. We also see it spreading to Italy. Oh, should have another word there. To Asia. All right. Okay. And really beyond. It's going lots of different places. It spreads out here. This is why when we talk about the Greeks and the Romans, they have so much in common. Right? Because in a lot of ways they are, right, the Romans are an outgrowth of Greek civilization. And politically, it's hard to see from this, right? But I don't want to keep using that word. All these places are colonized. It's on such a small scale compared to today. But there's all some kind of political connection there. But it's not as strong as political connections today. It's still very different. That's why we don't call this a true form of globalization. Also, as big as this is for the time period, we're still just talking about a little sliver of North Africa and Europe and Asia. That's right, I'm not on the wrong. There we go. Our next antecedent of globalization is the Silk Road, right, which really you call the Silk Roads, but that's not quite as concise sounding, because it turns out there's more than one Silk Road, but it all kind of follows this same direction. And this begins in the 100s BC and runs to the 400s AD. which I know that dating, crossing the line from BC to AD can be a little weird. Don't get too hung up on it. The main reason it's important for us to understand is that this is happening during the era of the Roman Empire before it's fallen in 476 AD. And what's significant about this is now we've got a much longer scale. I mean, sure, the Phoenicians kind of touched Asia, but barely. This, we're talking about the heart of China being connected to Europe. Specifically spanning from China to Rome. But this still isn't truly globalization, because the relationship between China and Rome and any of the points along the way is very limited. It's called the Silk Road for a reason. It's only about luxury goods. And one of those, you'll also not be surprised to hear, was silk. All right, silk was a big deal, but it was so outrageously expensive that very, very few people could afford it. It was so expensive that it was worth packing from China over land, right, by camels and on horseback all the way to here, where it spent a little bit of time going by sea. It's also about spices. Right? Spices were a huge deal. It sounds very strange, right, in 21st century America, especially in the Midwest, where, let's face it, cooking still doesn't always involve a whole lot of spices. But back in this time period, they were luxury things. You couldn't just go into Hy-Vee and buy cardamom or saffron or turmeric right off the shelf. And that gets us to the next place. We'll fill in blank for whose spice trade this is in a minute, but I don't want to give away the surprise. All right, we are fully in the era of AD, or Common Era, depending on what you want to call it, the 600s to the 1400s, the 7th century to the 15th century. That red line, that's still the Silk Road. Right? It looks a little different than we saw it on the previous slide. It's changed some. Right? I want you to focus on the blue lines. That's the spice trade that we are interested in now. All right, choose your option. What religion do you think was spread by that spice trade? All right, and correct answer is Islam. Right. Okay, this is where we can see one of those connections between lots of the things that we have looked at. Remember, for the Italian merchants that were involved in the Crusades, one of the things they liked to pack back from the Holy Land was spices that had been brought by Muslim traders. Right? Islam is spread. Right? It's the reason that to this day, Malaysia is majority Muslim. Indonesia, farther out here, running to just north of Australia, majority Muslim. So the spice trade is what's responsible for spreading Islam to Southeast, as far as Southeast Asia. And again, as far as what is today Indonesia. also the reason why when you get down here to Tanzania and Africa, their capital is Dar es Salaam, even though it's today a majority Christian country. It's that legacy of the Muslim spice traders. All right, and our last slide here, and this is going to be where we'll finish today and pick up tomorrow. All right, from the 1400s, the 15th century, to the 1700s or 18th century, we're much closer to globalization. Right? And as you guess, like the fact that we have to show the whole globe map now, we have all these arrows of people traveling around it, right? This is much closer to globalization. Right? It's led by Christian Europeans. It is often called the Age of Discovery. But discovery isn't really the right term for it, and there's been kind of a shift away from calling it the Age of Discovery. I'm not saying you can't call it that, and that you won't still see it called that, because you will. But there's a shift away from it. Right? And what I want you to answer, and I know we're running short on time, that's okay. Why is it better to call this an age of exploration than an age of discovery? And don't worry if you're not feeling like a human dictionary on a Monday morning. Well, Monday afternoon. Go with your gut. All right, and we've got a winner. The European Christians were not the first people to discover it. If we look at these places, there were other people already here. Native Americans, Aboriginal people in Papua New Guinea, and what's labeled on that map as New Holland or Australia. And so what we need to call it instead is an age of exploration, because exploration is about finding something and learning about something that is new to you, even if it isn't new to other people. Brody could go out to Missouri Western, the conservation office there, and explore those woods and learn lots of new stuff, even though Brody is certainly not the first person to walk those trails. Okay, get this saved, get this uploaded. We will have an exit slip, but not until seminar, obviously. All right, enjoy your lunch, guys.